Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Gamers Podcast. We're back here. This is a very interesting episode. It's not, I figured I'd make it a Gamers Podcast. I'm kind of going to be all over the place in this video, kind of ranting, but I was thinking about making this with my thoughts, but then I also decided to make it a Gamers Podcast because it does have something directly to do with gaming, but it's also going to be amongst other things. So I think it's just, I thought it was interesting to make a podcast out of. There's a couple topics I'm going to be breaking down in this video. It's going to be very interesting, and I'm also going to make future videos about this. It may be another podcast, or maybe my thoughts, more talking in depth about some of these topics. So this is going to be a topic I'm going to be revisiting in the future, just in different formulas. But this is something I'm going to be talking about a little bit, touching base with, and something. Now this kind of relates to a old My Thoughts video I made. It was about 2 or so years ago. Is the My Thoughts on the future of YouTube, and obviously a lot of things have changed just in a short 2 year period. It's probably coming up on 3 years now. But it's a very interesting topic, and I didn't go too much in depth of everything, not how I'm planning on doing this video. So it's kind of a recreation of that, a little bit touched up, and obviously a lot of things have changed. I'm going to be talking about a lot of stuff, and also, things like that. So it's kind of going to be the same style, just talking about different things. It's more or less not the future of YouTube, it's more or less going to be talking about the present of YouTube. That's the bigger difference. I'm talking about YouTube right now, the present, and how YouTube is now. Because obviously I'm here on YouTube. I pay attention to a lot of different things going on the platform. I'm trying to grow on this platform, as you guys know, and we're hitting our goals here. I love how the channel's doing. That's a little bit of a side thing, but I look at how the platform is doing is on YouTube, and obviously there's been a lot of problems, and we're just going to get right into it. There's been a lot of problems on YouTube. A lot of people have issues with how YouTube handles certain things, community guidelines, copyright strikes. A lot of stuff gets abused, particularly with copyright, I know. Even if it's under fair use, YouTube doesn't handle copyright very well in the past. But that's just another problem. YouTube's going to have its problems. It has its problems. It's had its problems for years. Everybody, it's not going to be perfect. However, my point being is, I think YouTube right now is in a pretty good time. It's in a pretty good era, especially we're going to talk about some of the other social media apps going on and whatnot. But I think right now YouTube is in a, dare I say, a peak era. Now, this is 100% opinion based. Obviously everybody thinks differently than me. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. That's the beauty of it. So take this as 100% my opinion. Not, saying anything generalizing everybody, but in my opinion, I think YouTube might be in a peak era right now, because I watch a lot of YouTube. A lot of other, I'm not the only one, but I watch a lot of YouTube, and the videos I'm seeing, like in the algorithm and whatnot. Now this could just be my specific algorithm or my in my recommended and whatnot for YouTube. But I see a lot of good videos, and if you could get the right amount of, right recommendations, recommendations and the algorithm work with you, you could get some pretty good videos. Now, I see a lot of smaller YouTubers getting featured in my recommended and whatnot, which I love because I'm a smaller YouTuber. Obviously, those YouTubers have a couple 100,000 subscribers. They're a little bit bigger than me, but smaller creators nonetheless. You're not seeing as much big creators getting recommended. Now, this again is my recommended. Of course, my algorithm could be very different on the YouTube platform, but I feel like if I'm getting it and if I'm watching the same things, particularly with gaming and whatnot, a lot of other smaller creators are getting recommended to me, which is good. I like to see that because I like to see smaller creators getting, obviously, their recommendations, and they make good videos. There's good videos that I've watched that have creators of like a couple 100,000 subscribers, small on YouTube scale, and it's good to see. It's good to see that they're getting recommended, and they're good videos. It's a peak era of videos, and I think a lot of smaller creators are getting the recognition they deserve within YouTube's algorithm, and I think I have to commend YouTube for that. Now again, I'm not saying YouTube's perfect. It has its problems on all edges. It's had its problems. It currently has problems. I'm not going to glaze YouTube, but it's also not bad. It's also not a worst time we could have for YouTube. I think YouTube is in a very good era right now. And if they keep formulating their algorithm how they are, I'm looking through my YouTube recommended right now because I'm kind of using this for reference. There's some pretty good videos on here. Now, there's bigger YouTubers. Obviously, they're coming in here and recommendations and whatnot. But there's also a lot of other smaller YouTubers that I've found and subscribed to because I like these guys. I like some of the guys who put on here. GTA YouTubers, gaming YouTubers. Like, I've subscribed to a lot of smaller YouTubers that make pretty good videos. And I think YouTube is very in very good era with that. A lot of people are making good videos. talking about good stuff, a lot of different, and that's just with everything. It's maybe not so specifically with gaming, but I figured, because it's on the Gamers Podcast, that's what I was talking about specifically. But there's been other things that have been recommended to me, whether it's about politics or like other good stuff that I just, I like to see. There's a lot of smaller, creators getting their due, and I really like to see that. So if it's recommended like that for everybody, if YouTube's algorithm is working like that for a lot of other people, I hope it is, which is why I would love to see comments below, of course, if your algorithm is recommending smaller creators that you may enjoy. Maybe if you recommended me as a smaller creator. But it's very interesting, I like to see that YouTube's doing that because, a lot of the smaller creators on the platform put a lot of time in it. A lot of people do it on their own. If you're a smaller creator, you don't have editors, or you don't pay editors to do. A lot of the bigger YouTubers, of course, do that. But if you're a smaller creator, most of them, the time, like me, just to compare, you put effort into your YouTube videos and you edit it, do all the things on your own. And, I think it's good to see them getting the recommendation they deserve, the recognition. And if it's coming up in the algorithm, that boosts viewership. And they put hard work into it. So I commend that. I think YouTube is in a very peak era. I think a lot of people are putting effort into their videos. A lot of people are doing pretty good effort. And this is just what I'm seeing, again, be completely different for somebody else. Of course, YouTube Shorts is not, it's not good. I don't like YouTube Shorts. I kind of separate regular YouTube from YouTube Shorts now. YouTube Shorts is just mostly just not really good. It's short form content. No, I watch it from here and again. I don't watch it all the time, but here and then, YouTube Shorts isn't as good as, I'm talking about main peak YouTube, maybe more long form content or like 10-minute, 14-minute videos that you'll see about gaming or whatever. That's what I'm generalizing. I'm not really talking about YouTube Shorts because that's a whole other rabbit hole. I don't like YouTube Shorts. That's just what I'm getting over. I don't like how it's set up. I don't really think it's good content on there. The people who make it, it's mostly AI, which we're going to be getting into later. But I think right now, just to generalize it, YouTube is in a very peak era in terms of content. I think a lot of smaller creators are putting good things out on the platform, unbiased opinions, if it's politically. I'm not really going to get into politics too much, but politically I feel like there's a lot of unbiased YouTubers that report on the news, and there's a lot of bias going on in the news right now. Again, I'm not going to get too much into politics. However, that's what you want. You want unbiased media, and I think a lot of smaller YouTubers are getting recommended on that. So I like to see that. And also just generally. So I think it's a very peak era. I like what YouTube's going through. I think we're in the best time we could be in, despite everything else with YouTube. And comparing to other platforms, and that's what we're going to get into, is comparing to other platforms. A lot of the platforms that compare to YouTube are not very good, and the problem is AI. A lot of people are having talks about AI, and this is what I was talking about in my YouTube video. AI is kind of, I like AI, I use it from time to time. I don't particularly support everything that it does. I think it causes a lot of problems. It can help, just like with anything, technology and whatnot, it can help a lot. But it could also harm a lot. I mean, AI is just, the thing is, and that comes back to it, if you go on TikTok, there's a lot of AI on there. There's a lot of, it's more short form content, just to compare. There's a lot of, I'm not saying, there's good TikTok creators. But if you're scrolling through, some of it's AI. Most of what I get is AI stuff that, people don't really put too much effort in on there. Other creators don't really put too much effort. You put AI, but it also gets views, though. You put something in AI, but it gets views. And that's there and is the problem. And this is where I'm kind of going to get in my rant here. AI is it's the thing, people put low effort content into AI that's kind of garbage and it's not really good, but it'll get millions, sometimes millions of views, and then smaller creators will put effort. Smaller creators like me, and I'm not trying to cry out, I'm not trying to complain or anything. But there's smaller creators, other than me, of course, there's smaller creators that actually put effort into their content and they don't get as much views as they probably should. But then some AI garbage that somebody took 5 minutes to create, through an AI generator, it took them 5 minutes, it'll get millions of views. In some cases, not all the time, but it'll get millions of views. And then this hardworking creator that took hours and hours to edit their video, get gameplay for it, whatever it is they're trying to do, whatever effort they put into it. They put effort into it. That's what matters. There's smaller creators who don't get what they deserve on TikTok and Instagram. Instagram is actually pretty good. There's some good stuff on Instagram, but it's also a lot of AI stuff. There's smaller creators that put time and effort into their videos and whatnot, and they don't get the recognition they deserve. So, comparative to all the other platforms that try to do long form content, I know TikTok can, they can, I think they have like 10-minute videos. I don't see it a lot. It's still mostly short form content. But it's hard for people to draw the line deferably of, AI in real life now. It's getting to that point, which is scary almost. The future of that is scary, especially with the internet and everything. That's something I'm going to be talking about in a separate video coming up I have planned. I'm going to be talking more about that, but this is just something I figured I'd touch up on. Like I said, some of these topics I'm going to get more into later on, but this is something I definitely wanted to talk about because it's so important now, and I haven't really talked about it before, but now that's kind of fully coming in, people's everyday lives, AI and whatnot. People put, and particularly, maybe not even AI-generated videos, particularly with AI-generated voices. Like, I'm talking to you right now. I'm obviously not AI, but people will do that. They'll put an AI voice over, they'll voice over something and they will, talk about a topic, which I don't think that's inherently bad. I've seen people where they talk about topics over AI, they do an AI voice over gameplay, which I don't think that particularly is the worst thing. That's not inherently bad because you still put effort into it. You still have to write out a script. You talk about whatever it is, and that's where AI can be helpful. But for the people who solely base their entire, persona on the internet, it's not strictly to YouTube, but persona on the internet to AI, I don't particularly, and they get views for it, I don't particularly support that. I think, while the smaller creators are kind of struggling to keep their content up, it's a challenge, to keep up with AI. A lot of people just, it's garbage. It's garbage, in my opinion. I enjoy AI, but I think there's aspects of it that don't really need to be, promoted, and they should be watched a little bit more. AI needs to be watched, and it needs to be regulated, I think, a little bit more on platforms. We need to be careful of what, the generative media. We need to be careful of what AI is. We need to be careful of what exactly it's doing. You know what I mean? Like, I hope it makes sense. I'm kind of ranting here, like I was saying, but I think AI just needs to be more regulated overall across all platforms. Even YouTube, even YouTube. I think YouTube does a better job at it. But even YouTube, they could do a better job. I think all platforms need to do a better job at regulating AI, making sure at least if it's going to be labeled, it needs to be labeled, this is AI. They need to regulate it more. They need to have better detection systems because I've seen things that people are so confused on, is this AI or not? It needs to be clear cut. They need to be regulated more. They need to say this is AI or this is not AI. This is a real person talking to you or this is an AI person talking to you. We need to draw that line. And once we didn't draw a line, that's where it's getting scary. We can't draw that line because I think platforms aren't doing a good enough job at regulating it. So at least if I get, I think it needs to be informative on what's AI so nothing is, there's a lot of misleading things on there, on all platforms. There's a lot, you can mislead a lot of people with AI. And I think that's scary. That can be dangerous at times. So I think platforms need to do a better job at regulating AI, labeling what is AI and what isn't. And that's definitely what we need to do. Not just AI, but also CGI and also some other things, but mainly AI. Excuse me. But anybody can get their hands on an AI, chatbot, whatever it is, ChatGPT, whatever. And again, I'm not, dissing AI entirely. I think it could be very helpful to a lot of even smaller creators. I use AI from time to time, but the people who completely just, kind of create AI garbage, but then it gets millions of views, I don't really support that because there's no effort that goes into it. Content creation, I think it should be solely rewarded based on effort and time. I put time into my videos. A lot of other people put time into their YouTube videos, editing and whatnot. I think that should be more rewarded on a long scale, and that's coming back to what I was saying. That's what YouTube is doing. I like to see that from YouTube. They're, promoting a lot of smaller creators in the recommendations. That's where a lot of people get their views. You get it in their recommended, also from subscribers. But, that's also where a lot of smaller YouTubers get their boosts, from being in recommended, word of mouth and whatnot, but mostly recommended and stuff, shares and whatnot. So I think it's good that YouTube is doing that. I support that 100%. Not to say YouTube is flawless, but I think YouTube right now is in a pretty good era. Again, comparative to all the other platforms you have to go to, YouTube's in a pretty decent era. I like what YouTube's doing. I think they're in a maybe not in a whole peak era, maybe not like they once were, but I think we're kind of in a mini peak era in YouTube. I think YouTube's in a good place right now. If they could keep doing that, I think they're on a good path. So I like what YouTube's doing. I like what I'm seeing on the platform. I think the interface, just the menus and whatnot across kind of all devices. Now, I know it can be different on your TV or console, phone, whatever, mobile device. But I think the interface and whatnot, the way YouTube is set up, I like it. I hope they don't change anything too much. And, I don't see AI on YouTube, and every other platform also has been yet to implement AI. Now I know YouTube is owned by Google, and obviously Google has Gemini. They have their own AI that's implemented other places, but I don't see too much AI in YouTube, particularly with Google. And I would like to keep it that way. I would like to see maybe a little bit of an AI feature here. I wouldn't mind that, but I just hope that they don't completely throw AI on our faces like they're doing everywhere else, because YouTube is probably the only place I've been where I don't see as much AI as I do on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, whatever. Maybe not Facebook. I'm not on Facebook too much. But Twitter, even Twitter has their whole thing. So YouTube is probably the only place I've seen where I don't see as much AI as I have seen, which is very surprising. Because of course it's run by Google. I'm surprised Google hasn't done anything, and I hope they keep it that way. I hope they keep YouTube the way they are. I hope they keep their algorithm the way it's going, and I like what I'm seeing on YouTube. So I think officially we're in a mini peak era of YouTube. I enjoy it. So I think we're good. We're doing good in terms of YouTube. Now AI is a big thing. I'm going to be talking more about that in a later video. It might be a podcast or my thoughts. I'm not quite sure. I think I might make it a my thoughts on AI. So stay tuned for that. I'll be talking a little bit more on that, and particularly how it affects just people in general, outside of creators and whatnot. So I'll talk about that later. That's another topic I'll be touching up on. But I figured I'd come on here, make a podcast. This is something I've been thinking about for a while. I wanted to make it, kind of had to get a script together, more or less ranting. An interesting topic nonetheless I did want to talk about, and something I'm going to touch base up more in the future, like I said, but this is just something I wanted to do real quick. Thought it was something I've been planning for a while, so like I was saying. But yeah, that's going to pretty much wrap it up. Of course, leave your comments down below what your YouTube algorithm recommendation is like. Is it like more smaller creators like me, maybe more bigger scale creators? I would be very interested to see. It would be actually cool. I'm thinking, actually, I might do a survey. I might put a survey out there related to this video. After this video comes out, I might put a survey out on the community tab if you're seeing more smaller creators or bigger creators on their algorithm, or what your YouTube algorithm recommendations are like. I might do that. That might be something fun to do. Also comment down below what you think of AI and everything. Is it good, bad? Do you think it could be good, or do you think or do you think what I think, can it be good at times but also bad at times? I think it definitely, just at the end of the day, needs to be more regulated, which it's not. It's not like it should be. So I think it just needs to be more regulated at the end of the day. Certainly crazy times that we're heading into, especially as an internet personality, I guess you could call me. Especially being on the internet, it's just very certainly interesting times we're heading into. So yeah, definitely going to keep an eye on that. Let's definitely be following up on this. But yeah, for now though, be sure to subscribe for more content. Like if you like the Discord, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, links in the description. And yeah, for now though, I will see you guys in the next video.